What is up, everybody? Dan and the Fireman here with Motorcycle Training Concepts. We're going to be learning how to ride this big motorcycle. It's the 2022 Indian Chief Dark Horse, but it could be any big cruiser. What we're going to be focusing though is the friction zone and then the throttle control. So this is going to be the basis of the rest of the exercises that we're going to be doing with this big motorcycle. So make sure you pay attention. All right, now that we have figured out what the primary controls are from the previous video, what we're going to be doing is finding where that friction zone is, and the easiest way to do that is to actually sit on the motorcycle. What I recommend is always full gear when you get on a motorcycle. You don't know if it takes off or you fall over, you hit your head. Make sure you wear full gear. So what we have here is the clutch lever. We have the throttle over here, front brake, shift lever, rear brake. Now all we're going to be doing is turning it on, pulling it all the way in to remove all power to that rear wheel and slowly letting out that clutch lever until the bike starts to move. Now we're not taking off, we're just feeling it move, squeeze it back in, get back in position, do it again, it starts to move, squeeze it back in, get back in position. So let's go and take a look at what that looks like. We got to turn everything on. Now here's the thing, before we hit the engine start, we want to make sure we're in neutral, so you typically have a green light. But how do you check without, maybe your green light's all screwed up? How do you check? Well, if you can walk your bike without it stopping, that means you're in neutral. Now, if you're in first gear, now it's in first gear, it doesn't want to move. So if we're in first gear, go ahead and squeeze that lever, find neutral, and there it is. And that's something you're going to want to do when you play around with your bike. All right, so let's go ahead and turn it on. What we're going to do is squeeze that clutch lever all the way in, press it down to first gear, and slowly let it out. And that's the friction zone. You see how I'm starting to move a little bit? So once it starts catching, so I squeezed it back in, now we're going to go ahead and get back. Once it starts to catch, so now I can let it out quicker to that spot, and it will go. The first few times you're going to be slow getting to that friction zone because you're trying to figure out where it's at. But look at, now I can go like this really quick and get to that friction zone. So it's all about practice, and that's going to help you out when you do your U-turns, figure eights, when you go to class, when you take your DMV test, whatever it is. But more importantly, when you're out riding. So we're going to go ahead and get it to that friction zone, and there it goes. Squeeze it back in, sit it back. Remember, the first few times you're like, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I don't know. I don't know. Oh, there it is. Now, one thing you want to start practicing pretty soon is once you get it to that spot, give it a little bit of throttle. And by a little bit, I mean just a little turn of the throttle. And you'll start taking off. We'll talk more about that pretty soon. But that is how you find your friction zone. You just start letting it out until it grabs, and then you squeeze it back in. You don't have to take off, just a little bit. Squeeze it back in, and that's it. All right, now we have everything set up here. We're going to be utilizing more of that friction zone, and we're going to duck walk with our feet. Now, if you can't touch the ground, this is why it's super important to learn the friction zone, because when you do these tight turns, you get out of parking spaces, you need to utilize the bike how it is. So try your best on this. Maybe you have to go side to side, but on cruiser motorcycles like this, with a low seat height, I can touch the ground with a 30-inch inseam, okay? So the way I have all these cones set up, and by cones I mean tennis balls cut in half, I will have something on the screen right here with all the measurements, but basically it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parking spaces long, because that's all I got. So it's our compact course that we have here for MTC. You can take this to a parking lot anywhere you want to go. So like I said, we're going to do this little paddle walk thing, okay? Oh, by the way, wear full gear, even eye protection. This Voss helmet's pretty cool when it comes to that. All right, so we're going to get up to here. Now remember, we're going to do that friction zone thing again, but this time we're going to continue going instead of squeezing it back in to stop, putting ourselves back in position. I already got the bike on. We're in neutral. There we go. So now we're in neutral, can't move. Friction zone is out. There's nothing there. The clutch is out, can't move. So what do we have to do? We have to shift into first. This is your first real introduction to shifting. So we're going to squeeze it in with our left foot, press it down. Okay? Pretty simple, right? Now we're going to do that and move a little bit. Now you might need to use a little bit of throttle. It won't move because I have the clutch in, but if You're on a big boy bike like this, the 116, I don't think you're gonna need it too much. Now, both hands on the handlebars, and if anything bad happens, anything squirrely happens, squeeze that back in, squeeze the front brake, okay? So that's why you need both hands. All right, so once again, we're just gonna paddle walk, and here we go. So look forward, chest and eyes up, get to that friction zone, and this is all you have to really do to be comfortable, okay? That's it. I'm not doing anything with that hand. I'm just holding it for balance, and I'm just gonna walk. That's you getting used to the friction zone. And if you let it out more, you're gonna go faster. You squeeze it in, you're gonna go a little bit slower. And once you get to here, go ahead and squeeze in that clutch, squeeze in that brake, and try to stop on that cone. Go ahead and put it in neutral. It's the green light, but I don't trust it. How do I test it? Slowly get to that friction zone, nothing happens. Okay, here we go. Now what you want to do is turn the handlebars all the way to the right and try to push the bike. Now if it's difficult for you, you can get off the bike and turn it around however you got to the parking lot. All right. Now we're going to turn left. These bikes are kind of heavy. You're going to get a workout today. Whew, maybe it's because I was going uphill. Now I'm going downhill. It's easy. There we go. Now, I'm not exactly at that cone because this thing's turning radius is like a boat. But that's fine because the goal is just to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And thankfully, I got a big parking lot over there. I could just turn around pretty simple. So same thing. Press it down. Start letting it out. And there we go. Now, if you let it all the way, oh, we're going. Got to lift those feet up. We'll talk more about that pretty soon. And by pretty soon, I mean right now. So what we're going to be doing is letting it out and seeing if we can pick our feet up. And before we get to that cone, start putting our feet down, start squeezing the clutch, and start applying progressive brake pressure. So here we go. We're going to get it to that friction zone. Maybe give it a little bit of throttle. Lift those feet up. Go nice and easy. Now squeeze the clutch, squeeze the front brake, and press the rear brake a little bit, and stop. Now let's turn it back around. And here's the thing. I'm going to go to this next spot because I'm going to practice a little bit. And if you know how to do wide turns right now, then what are you doing on the friction zone? So once again, we're going to go across, start releasing this. Start giving a little bit of throttle if you want. Oh no, I'm going crazy, Squeeze, 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 squeeze. The clutch and the front and rear brake. Make sure your handlebars are straight. Last thing you want is do this, and it's gonna fall over. All right. The goal isn't to be staying on this exercise all day, every day. The whole point of this is to find that friction zone with your brand new motorcycle. You could do this in your driveway, on the street in front of your house, in the apartment complex, and the main goal is to find that friction zone. If you have trouble, please, please, please go to an MSF BRC1. Okay, you might need coaching instruction. But if you feel like you can handle this, let's keep doing it, okay? Because this is going to be the basis for your tight turns, your U-turns, figure eights, pretty much everything, including shifting, okay? So we're going to be playing around in the parking lot for a little bit longer. But here's the thing. If you like what you see, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. We're going to have more and more of these types of videos out there in the future. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and play around a little bit more.